In our last story, we ended with a lesson, a promise that we'd never stay silent again. But tonight, we go deeper, beneath the headlines, beneath the outrage, into the mind of the Columbine High School massacre. April 20th, 1999, a Tuesday morning, cool, clear, and deceptively calm. Students at Columbine High were thinking about prom, exams, and graduation, the ordinary milestones of the teenage life. Nobody noticed two shadows moving through the parking lot with duffel bags heavier than they should have been. But the truth is, Columbine didn't start that morning. It began months, even years, before, in quiet bedrooms, in online chat rooms, in the dark corners of two disturbed teenage minds. Eric Harris was the kind of kid teachers remembered, sharp, articulate, often polite. But behind the grin was rage, the kind that didn't explode all at once. It brewed. His personal website, hosted on the early 90s internet, looked innocent at first. Video game mods, rants, jokes, but hidden in deeper pages were lists, targets, homemade bomb recipes, violent fantasies. He wrote like a soldier preparing for a war no one else knew existed. In his journal, he wrote, "I hate the human race. It's time for a revolution." Dylan was different, softer, quieter, drowning in a sadness he couldn't explain. His diary wasn't filled with rage. It was filled with pain. "I don't fit in," he wrote. "I don't belong anywhere. All I want is for someone to understand." Where Eric wanted to destroy, Dylan wanted to disappear. But when those two paths crossed, destruction found purpose. Months before the attack, a local man named Randy Brown, a parent, found Eric's website. He saw the threats, the talk of bombs, the violent fantasies. He printed them out, brought them to the sheriff's office, and said, "I think this kid is dangerous." The police opened a file, wrote a report, then closed it. No one ever followed up. At school, both Eric and Dylan filmed class projects that were disturbingly violent. They played gunmen, killing jocks and classmates on camera. Their teacher thought it was creative expression. Even their friends noticed something different. Their laughter sounded forced, their eyes tired. But high school is a place where everyone's pretending. No one digs too deep. In the weeks leading up to April 20th, Eric and Dylan started recording themselves, what would later be called the basement tapes. Hours of footage, filmed in a dark room, with guns laid out on the table and smirks that didn't belong to teenagers. They spoke to the camera like it was history itself, daring it to remember them. "This is our revenge," Eric said. "It's not for fun," Dylan added. "It's for the world to see what you made us become." The tapes were never publicly released. Only fragments have been described by investigators, and maybe that's for the best. Experts would later debate what drove them: psychopathy, depression, bullying, violent media, gun culture, or all of it. But one truth emerges through every theory. They weren't monsters born overnight. They were boys molded by anger, by neglect, by delusion, until they believed mass murder was a performance that would make them immortal. And what's most terrifying is that nobody saw the full picture until it was too late. Pause this video for a moment and ask yourself, how many Erics and Dylans do we pass by every day? Quiet, withdrawn, bitter at the world. We look away thinking it's just teenage angst, but what if it isn't? If someone had listened, maybe 13 lives could have been saved. That morning, Eric and Dylan loaded their cars with propane bombs and guns. They waved to neighbors, laughed as they pulled into the school parking lot. Their plan wasn't to shoot, not at first. The bombs were meant to kill hundreds in the cafeteria. But when the bombs failed to detonate, their backup plan began. And at 11:19 a.m., they started walking toward the west entrance. Two boys, trench coats swaying, one carrying a carbine, the other a shotgun. The hallway security camera captured them entering. Then, silence. until the first shot rang out. It begins outside. Seniors Rachel Scott and Richard Castaldo are sitting on the grass, eating lunch near the west entrance. They see two classmates approaching, trench coats, long black duffel bags. Maybe it's a prank. Then the first explosion, a small pipe bomb. It fizzles out. Rachel looks up. The second sound is not a bomb. It's a gunshot. Eric Harris fires his carbine. Rachel collapses instantly. Richard is hit in the arm and chest, falling backward, unable to move. He hears laughter, teenage laughter, and the words, "Do you still believe in God?" Then another shot. Inside the cafeteria, students hear the pops, but no one's sure what it is. Some think it's fireworks. A janitor named Dave Sanders, a teacher and a coach, looks at the monitor in the security office. He sees the boys outside firing toward the west doors. He runs. "Get down! Everyone get down!" he shouts, waving students toward the back halls. He's not a police officer, but in that moment, he becomes one, guiding dozens of kids to safety. He never makes it out himself. Upstairs, the library is full. Around 50 students, some studying, some playing computer games. They hear the noise. They don't understand. A teacher, Patty Nielsen, runs in, bleeding slightly from glass, shouting, "There are kids with guns! Get under the tables!" They obey. For the next 7 minutes, the library becomes a silent cage. Then the shooters walk in. "Anyone with a white hat, stand up," one of them yells. "All you jocks, we're gonna kill you." But no one moves. They crouch, trembling, trying to stay quiet. The gunfire begins, deliberate, slow. They laugh between shots. They taunt victims, asking questions before pulling the trigger. In those minutes, 10 students are murdered, each in hiding, each believing they might be next. The 911 operator on the other end of the phone hears everything, the shots, the screams, the mocking voices, but the officers are still outside. They can't tell how many shooters there are or where. At 11:36 a.m., the gunfire stops. The killers reload. They shoot out the library windows, firing at police cars below, before walking out. For the next 20 minutes, they move through hallways like ghosts, firing randomly, tossing pipe bombs that barely ignite. Students hide in classrooms, some covering their mouths to stay silent, others whispering prayers. Police are still forming a perimeter. Protocol back then didn't call for immediate entry. Officers wait for SWAT, while inside, time bleeds slowly. In one classroom, a student uses a library phone to call 911. The dispatcher can hear the gunfire echoing down the hall. It's chaos, no plan, no control, just survival. In the science room, teacher Dave Sanders is shot trying to guide students down a hallway. They drag him into a classroom. He's losing blood fast, but he tells them to stay calm. For hours, he fades in and out of consciousness. "Tell my family I love them," he whispers. He dies before help reaches him. By now, Eric and Dylan have returned to the library. They pace around, stepping over bodies, muttering to each other. "Maybe we should start the fire," one says. They light Molotovs. Nothing catches. They laugh again, as if the plan had been a game that went too far. At 12:08 p.m., they each lift their weapons one last time. 2 gunshots echo through the library. Then silence. If evil looks like a monster, it's easy to see, but when it wears a backpack and smiles in the hallway, we never recognize it until it's too late. We all saw the warning signs. We just didn't believe 2 kids could do something this inhuman. Police finally enter the school. They move room by room, shouting, "If you can walk, come out with your hands up." Students pour out, some barefoot, some bloodied, most crying. They run past shattered glass, bullet holes, and bodies they can't unsee. Parents outside scream names into the air. Reporters broadcast live images, teenagers fleeing their school, hands raised. America watches horror in real time for the first time. By evening, 13 victims are confirmed dead, 24 wounded. The 2 perpetrators, dead by suicide. The images replay for days. The country demands answers. Why? Who's to blame? Music, video games, parenting, guns. But behind the noise, a quieter truth forms, one of warning, one of failure. Because Columbine wasn't just a tragedy, it was a mirror. We promised never again. But decades later, the same sound, the same screams, echo in classrooms across America. Different faces, different towns, same story. Maybe the real question isn't how they did it, but why we still haven't stopped it. Inside room 124, sophomore Lauren Townsend is writing notes for an English paper. A loud bang interrupts her thought. The class laughs nervously. Someone says it's construction. Then another bang, sharper, echoing through the air ducts. That's not fireworks, she whispers. The intercom crackles. Silence. Then the faint sound of panic in the hallway. Someone screams, "They've got guns!" Desks scrape across the floor as students dive for cover. The teacher locks the door, turns off the lights, and whispers, "Stay quiet." Lauren clutches her notebook, shaking. She writes one last line in it. "We're hiding. I don't know what's happening. He's shooting in the library." 911. Operator, Jefferson County 911. What's your emergency? Caller. He's right outside the library. They're shooting people. Oh my God. Operator. Okay, listen to me. Stay on the line. Are you safe? Caller. We're under the tables. Please hurry. Operator. Stay quiet. Don't move. Help is coming. But the help doesn't come. Not yet. The operator listens, powerless, as more shots ring out. The sound of laughter between gunfire. The faint crash of breaking glass. Then a long silence. I was under the table near the computers. My legs were shaking so hard I thought the noise would give me away. I could see their boots, black, heavy, walking slowly. One of them said, "Peekaboo." And then, another shot. Someone cried out for their mom. Another begged, "Please don't." He laughed. He said, "Everyone's gonna die anyway." They fired again and again. I covered my ears. I prayed they wouldn't look under my table. They didn't. When it stopped, I didn't move. I just stayed there, smelling the gunpowder, feeling the heat of the bullets in the air. Down the hallway, student Evan Todd hides in a supply closet. He hears footsteps approach, deliberate, echoing off lockers. The door creaks open slightly. He holds his breath. One of the shooters looks in, gun raised, then lowers it. "We're done here," he says. They move on. Evan survives. Sirens flood the air. Police cars, ambulances, helicopters. Parents begin running toward the school, shouting their children's names. Officers push them back, shouting, "Get behind the line." The chaos outside mirrors the horror inside. Two realities colliding. One of waiting, one of surviving. Reporters begin arriving before the gunfire has even stopped. Police discover 2 propane tanks in the cafeteria, undetonated, each capable of killing hundreds. The plan had failed by accident, not mercy. Investigators later said, if those bombs had gone off, Columbine would have been the deadliest school attack in U.S. history, by far. The shooters wanted the world to burn, not just the school. Coach Dave Sanders is bleeding, but he's still directing students to safety. He leads dozens down stairwells, shoving open exit doors. He's hit by a bullet near the neck. Students pull him into a science classroom. They bandage him with shirts, keep him talking. "Tell my girls, I love them," he whispers again. He survives for 3 hours before help reaches him. Too late. Outside, SWAT teams assemble, unsure of what's happening inside. Early training says, contain first, engage later, but every minute that passes inside means another life at risk. Officers can hear the gunfire echoing from windows. One SWAT leader later said, "We could hear the shots, but we didn't know where to go." We didn't even know how many shooters there were. Columbine changed that forever. After this, police training across America was rewritten. Inside the library, a handful of students begin crawling out. Smoke drifts through broken windows. The air smells of gunpowder and fire extinguishers. A voice on the intercom says, "If you can hear me, stay where you are. Do not move." For some, those words come too late. Bodies lie motionless across desks, backpacks spilled open, pencils, books, and shattered glass mix on the floor like a nightmare frozen in time. In their final moments, Eric and Dylan wander the library one last time. Their tone changes, no longer triumphant, but empty. "I don't feel real," one says. "Neither do I." They speak for a few more seconds. Then two shots echo, and then nothing. The noise stops. The fire alarms keep ringing. Water from broken sprinklers floods the hallways, mixing with blood and debris. The survivors emerge slowly, crawling, limping, shaking. Some refuse to step over bodies. Others can't look at all. Police enter at last, shouting commands, weapons drawn. They expect to find terrorists. Instead, they find two dead teenagers. Outside, students gather on the grass, wrapped in blankets, sobbing, bleeding. Reporters aim cameras. Helicopters hover overhead. One girl's hands are still shaking as she whispers, "I saw my friend die." Another just stares ahead, expressionless. The news anchors call it a tragedy. But for those who survived, it's something deeper, a fracture that never heals. We always think we'll know what evil looks like, that we'd see it coming, that we'd stop it in time. But evil often hides in plain sight. It smiles, it laughs, it goes to class. And every time it happens again, we repeat the same words. We never thought it could happen here. Within hours, every major network in America broadcasts the same images. Terrified teenagers running from a suburban high school, hands raised, faces streaked with tears and ash. Parents watching from miles away recognize the hallways, the lockers. They look like any school in America. In homes across the country, one question spreads like a virus. Why? By sunset, Columbine is no longer a local story. It's a global obsession. Cameras swarm the parking lot, satellite vans hum, reporters lean into microphones trying to make sense of the senseless. The words "trenchcoat mafia" dominate headlines, a phrase ripped from rumor. In truth, there was no organized group, no hidden cult, just two boys who used that myth as camouflage for their rage. Every channel wants a villain. Every parent wants a reason. The search for motive becomes a circus of speculation, violent video games, bullying, parenting, goth culture, music, gun laws. But none of it feels like an answer. When police finally clear the school, it's after midnight. They count 13 victims, 12 students and one teacher, and 2 perpetrators. Over 900 rounds fired, 99 explosive devices found, homemade, crude, and deadly. Investigators piece together timelines, motives, and missteps. They discover months of planning, maps, weapon purchases, journals, and the haunting basement tapes. In those tapes, Eric Harris smiles directly into the camera and says, "You'll all remember us." And he was right. The survivors return to their homes, but nothing feels normal again. Many suffer nightmares, guilt, PTSD. Some never return to school. Others become advocates, speaking at rallies, trying to make sense of the silence they hid in. Lauren Townsend's mother later said, "I used to wait for her voice every day after school. Now I wait for silence." One student who survived under a table said years later, "I didn't die that day, but part of me never left that library." Over time, myths around Columbine harden into collective memory. That they were bullied, that they were outcasts seeking revenge, that music drove them to murder. But the truth is colder and more terrifying. They weren't just angry at classmates. They hated humanity. They wanted destruction on a scale far beyond a high school. Their journals reveal admiration for historical killers, dreams of infamy, and an obsession with death. This wasn't a cry for help. It was an act of calculated evil, born in the ordinary shadows of suburban life. Before Columbine, police were trained to wait for SWAT. After Columbine, they were trained to run toward the gunfire. This single event changed every active shooter protocol in the United States. It created lockdown drills, school safety plans, threat assessment teams. Terms like school shooter became part of everyday vocabulary. It turned fear into policy, and policy into daily life. In the months after, journalists questioned their own role. Did the wall-to-wall coverage glorify the killers? Did the obsession feed copycats? In the next decades, the answer became painfully clear. As one after another, new names joined the list. Virginia Tech, Sandy Hook, Parkland, Uvalde. Each time, the news coverage felt eerily familiar. The same images, the same phrases, the same disbelief. Columbine became more than an event. It became a blueprint, a cultural scar, a symbol whispered in the darkest corners of the internet by those who saw the killers not as monsters, but as martyrs. Investigators later found posts, years later, from other would-be shooters referencing Eric and Dylan by name, mimicking their words, their plans, their poses. It was no longer just a tragedy. It was a contagion. For the families of victims, healing never meant closure. Each April 20th, they gather at a memorial near the school. Simple stone circles engraved with names, 13 plaques for 13 souls. The Columbine Memorial inscription reads, "It brought the nation to its knees, but now that we've gotten up, how have things changed? What have we learned?" And for many, the answer remains not enough. In the years that followed, American schools changed forever. Metal detectors, clear backpacks, security guards, lockdown drills for kindergartners who now grow up knowing what active shooter means before they learn multiplication. A generation shaped by the echo of that April morning. Teachers now memorize barricade procedures. Students text parents during drills just to say, "I love you." It's the legacy no one wanted, and no one can escape. Blame circled endlessly. The parents, the school, the police, the culture, the music, the guns. But beneath every argument lies a darker truth. Everyone saw a part of the storm coming, and no one stopped it. Randy Brown's report to the sheriff's office was ignored. Teachers dismissed the violent student films as creative projects. Peers heard threats and shrugged them off. Columbine wasn't just a school shooting. It was a collective failure of awareness. 26 years later, the hallways of Columbine are quiet again. The bullet holes are gone. The walls have been repainted. But some echoes never fade. Every time another shooting happens, we say the same words, thoughts and prayers. Never again. And yet, the cycle repeats. Maybe the real tragedy isn't what happened in 1999, but what keeps happening now. So before you scroll past another headline, before you look away from another name, remember this: Columbine wasn't the beginning. It was the warning. And every time we forget, we prove that they were right, that the world didn't listen. Don't let silence be the next bullet. In memory of the 13 victims of Columbine High School, and the countless others who came after, never again begins with you.